Good evening. My name is Ashley McLeod,
And I'm Janice Freeman.
and this is our third installment of our series talking about racism with our future young leaders. The third series is about our plan of actions and what we just want to do individually to be help be part of our help doing things in our community for people to have better understanding. So today you'll be seeing our guests speak about what their plan of action is.
And the idea, well, is to listen to the young voices and hear from them about how we can make a change within our community around the systemic racism and racism that happens, but even creating opportunities for our young leaders. So we'd like to bring them on.
We got Ethan. Oh, hi, Andrew. We have Andrew, Ethan,
Come on in, y'all.
Janaya Kashar, Maya,
Yeah.
and Shaylin. You guys can unmute yourselves.
Juan will actually be joining us in a few minutes. So we'll have our original crew back in action. How's everyone doing? And including Maya, yes. Everyone doing?
Doing good. Excited to be on again and just talk about things in our community.
Yeah. Andrew, Ethan, Maya. Everyone's talking tonight.
I'm feeling good.
I
feeling
feel
good.
the same way. But feel the same way.
Yeah.
Feel pretty good. Excited to keep going.
Good. And we're excited. I think it's really great, again, to have the opportunity to be able to do this and to also hear and listen to all of you. And we're hoping that all of our viewers too are also and everyone that's tuning in is just able to appreciate and accept everything that they heard. And I hope they're listening, staying educated. So we really want to talk a lot about what we can do as a community, what we can do within our own communities to help fight racism and systemic racism. So you guys had like a little homework to think of different ways you can contribute to the community, different ways you can continue to educate yourselves, different ways we can gather people together. So we're really excited to hear a lot from you guys about what it is that you think can happen and initiatives that we can take, for a step forward.
Well, what I think we could do is that we can either join or create an organization for the youth because it helps expand our knowledge, other people's knowledge that they don't know. We can help teach them.
And to add on to with like organizations and youth groups and stuff like that, also we can further educate people by like implementing and somehow in the schooling like Black history, like more information about it, because obviously there's not too many events that we get to learn about that have to do with African Americans and minorities in general. So having that type of knowledge in the schooling or just in the community will bring light to at least several people and the understanding of what we go through on a daily basis and why we do.
I agree, Kashar. Those are good ideas.
Yeah, really good idea.
Not just only in February.
Right.
Either.
Right.
It's more than just
Throughout the school year, because while a lot of the white American history you're learning about, the Black American history was happening at that same time.
Right.
So they need to learn how to combine them.
It is American history.
It's
Yeah.
just as important.
That's
Exactly.
right. You got to teach the other. But I do think it's also important. I like Kashar's point on having something like that within the schools, almost like a cultural studies.
Yeah,
To where
because
we
it should be.
different cultures, because we are a diverse community.
Right.
And there, and having something to where you're actually learning and experiencing other cultures than your own. Talk about biases, having certain courses like that, I think really it does benefit the youth.
Yeah.
And Naya, I love your idea too about a youth organization. Are you thinking more like a organization that is for, that simply just educates, or something where people can come in and we can create leaders through the organization, or a place where kids can go to just have like a safe space?
Actually, both, because like people do need to learn, so that the organization could be a good start for people to learn about Black history, and leaders can come from that organization also.
I like that. It's almost like how some colleges have certain different organizations within their campus
Yeah.
that are simply for that. That's actually a good idea. And seeing that we do have a community college that is also diverse within our community,
Right.
Yeah.
we got to start embracing that and creating these opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that idea. I love the idea of educating people, because I feel like when I saw what we were talking about this week and we had to think about what can we do in our community, all I can keep thinking of is like, we need to start somewhere. So few people realize that racism is systematic, and they don't realize that they, even if they themselves aren't racist, the people don't realize that they benefit from white privilege every day. And just so all I've been thinking about is like the education of people. We need to make people aware, because I feel like if people were aware of what was going on, they would care more, but they don't think it's real. So if we could have something like Janai was saying, like Janai and Kashar were saying, like an organization that educates people, helps make leaders, like that would be amazing. I think that would be amazing. That would really help.
I agree. We got to mobilize young leaders, starting with ones here. Hey, Dawn.
Oh, man, I'm trying to unmute. How y'all doing, man?
We're good. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm excited to do this. I'm excited.
We were just in the middle of the conversation about what we would like to see happen within our community, so feel free to jump in.
Oh, so I have two things that I've been thinking deeply about. Like, one, I would like to do like a community forum where outside of just us, when the time is appropriate, you know, outside of coronavirus and social distancing, when the time is right, I want us all to come together so we can work past certain stigmas and stereotypes put against us. And I definitely would like to see more jobs incorporate a cultural diversity training, because that's not prevalent around here, and that should definitely be a training. Because not everybody gets it. So that training would help people understand. And for instance, like my job, if we had that, not saying there's anything wrong with my job, but I do think that should be a thing at my job. There should be a training.
100%, especially given the population you're serving.
Yeah, so
we have those types of trainings. Yeah.
I think that'd benefit everybody. So so that's really it as far as what I'd like to be a part of. I'm always here to talk if anybody wants to talk, you know.
I had kind of pretty much the same idea about diversity sensitivity training, but specifically in our school district.
Yeah.
Because I know it's been a minute since the last time they've done it. So I think they could, one, do like diversity sensitivity training for the staff, but also maybe more culture-based clubs within the school would be cool.
Yeah.
That's a really...
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And it's almost, because people have to be culturally competent everywhere that you go. So if we're able to create that within our community, that really can help with the change and pushing us forward. And having those clubs where kids can be able to embrace themselves, you know, that's really important, especially within the schools. It almost reminds me of, we got some Degrassi fans in here. Remember there was an episode where they had like, I think it was like Cultural Week, or it was Cultural Day, and everybody got to come into the school and they all set up their own booths and they were able to talk about their cultures. And that show really did touch on a lot of really important subjects, but something like that too, to where you're able to come into the school and feel like you can embrace your culture, because we have to start there as well. You know, we want to be able to implement this, but we also have to make sure that it's a safe space for kids to be able to feel like they can embrace that. And it starts with what? Education, right?
Mm-hmm. But I agree, Maya. I think it starts with the leadership in the school district, though. So I really do believe that diversity training and sensitivity and inclusivity needs to be needs to be done, because they are getting more minority students than they are of white people, you know, and not even of Black kids. We're talking now of like the Spanish kids, you know, the Hispanic kids are coming in a lot. So I agree with Dewan, and I agree with definitely in the school.
Yeah, my approaches were more towards, because I know last week we talked about sports a lot and how a lot of our African American athletes are often held back. So to me, I think that there needs to be more opportunities for young African Americans to coach. There's a lot of people who are getting certified to coach different sports, and those opportunities aren't being put out to them because like they're so within the school district. I think they need to branch open, because just by a person going in to a tryout and seeing someone who looks like them, that makes them feel comfortable. That makes it feel like there's someone on their team, someone on their side who's going to push them, and not only in athletics, but in school as well. So I think that needs to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Continuing off of what Dewan said about like a forum and stuff, like I want to see, or like even be a part of something like how we have this right here. And we have all of these viewers who are obviously watching this because they want to educate themselves and learn more about the problem and see what's going on and seeing what they could do. Just having like something in the public, like set up in a building or something, just having something like what we have here, just a setting where people can just talk about this problem, educate themselves, and just be able to listen and learn, I guess.
It's true. It's true, Ethan, because the more you talk, the more you'll really realize we're all pretty much not that much different. You know what I'm saying? And it's through conversation and communication. We are a country that does not communicate. We're a country based off assumptions. And I think the more we talk authentically about it, not so much politically correct about it, I think that's when our community could change. So that's really good.
No, that is a good point. I feel because while we're also talking about like what we can do, like what are some steps, I wanted to ask Ethan and Dewan on that, because I feel like that is a certain initiative that we could really get going, because I don't want us to just be talking about it. You know, we have to really create the steps and the plans to do so, because we are young leaders within our community, right? So community forums are great ideas, or having spaces to where people can come in and we can have different topics each night, to where it's an open space to have open communication. What are some steps that you would take to implement that? Because we do have viewers watching that would like to be a part of that change. So being able to put it out there, I think is important.
I definitely say first we need a safe space where people can feel like they can walk in and just talk and learn. So a place like APT, definitely, that's a place where you can come in and we can figure out, you know, the ins and outs of it. But as long as everyone can come in and we can work together to push past certain stereotypes and stigmas put around us, I think that'd be a major step forward. So, you know, the right, I don't know how to put it, but like, it's like, as long as we can get the right mix of people together and it can just grow from the first meeting to, like you said, it can change every time we have a meeting. It can be a different topic, and that can just expand upon itself.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Even having like big supporters like APT or any other businesses or companies, like having those could help just spread the word around, because so many people follow those organizations because they're all a part of it, whether it's for some different part of like the community or not. But if they see that, then maybe they'll be more like intrigued with wanting to see what it's about and showing up to the location and just trying to be a part of the change.
And it doesn't even have to be topics. We could even get businesses in where, you know, African Americans aren't knowledgeable if they're hiring. We could do job fair, you know, it doesn't have to stop at the meetings like job fairs. We can, you know, see if we can even put people to tutor kids. If sports is the issue, like Shay said, and we're not getting the education, we also can make the initiative to maybe find people to, you know, help those student athletes that are struggling to make sure they're up to par.
Yeah, and I think like two different initiatives that you can do. Because what I was kind of getting from Dewan and Ethan was more like a place to where you could have those communications and conversations. You know, like whether it's BTW or APT, they used to, a lot of places used to do that in like churches, to where churches would open up their doors and you'd be able to come in and talk about different things happening within the community. I would love to see that, because the conversation has to keep going, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think to have young leaders be the ones to initiate that, I think is what would really keep it going and growing. And then to Ash's point too, I mean, the idea of having that as well, and mentors or tutors and stuff, that where people can help the younger generations, especially the minorities within our community.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really good point. I'm taking notes here, guys, because I like Jania's idea of an organization, and I'm going to call it a coalition for right now. And so we should have some ideas for that.
I have a little bit of an idea for that. I think if possible, maybe within our like Auburn chapter of the NAACP, if there was a subsection that was directed at youth leaders within the community, that they could have their own meetings, obviously, and then work in tandem with the people that are running the organization.
I agree.
I agree. That's actually an idea I had, as to where like these leaders, like the groups they have, they incorporate more of the youth, because we're the future of our community. So I think we need to be incorporated in, like you said, the NAACP. It shouldn't just be, I don't want to say older. It shouldn't just be people who have been in that position for so long, because sometimes you need like a new look at things, and you need to look through the lens of your younger generation.
Yeah,
They're the ones who are living through it the most. Like, they're the ones living through it the most, in my opinion. It's the younger generation that we're seeing be shot and killed and harassed. So I think they do need to incorporate something like that.
Yeah.
I think our generation kind of adds like a fresh pair of eyes and has kind of a different insight, I feel, because of the way we've been brought up within this community, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense.
Very different upbringing, very different experiences, but you should always be bringing people to the table, you know? So I do like that point, Maya. That is a really good action step that could happen. And maybe even it takes finding out when they have meetings and bringing that to the president and the vice president and having a conversation about how that can get started. We got to start putting ourselves in those spaces. That's what's really important too, and creating those opportunities.
I agree.
I like that point. And even within the schools, going to the school board meetings, because those are open to the public.
Yeah.
And bringing everything that we would like to happen to help progress and put our school into the future in our community. Going in and voicing your opinions as well at school board meetings and finding out when those are. We should also be there as well. Make our voices heard. That's what's really important. And bringing in your friends. That's a good point. Naya and Kashar. what are some steps that you would like to take for your initiative? So to see happen, because y'all the leaders out here.
Well, like you said, the first step would be to approach the school board directly. Only because if you want it to be implemented into schools, you're obviously going to have a reason why it should be implemented. And there's going to be certain people that's not going to understand where you're coming from, which is why you have to inform people on where you're coming from. Which is why school meetings, school councils, you can even get higher board of education. Having conversations with those type of people that have the power in the education system and actually showing that you have a voice and using your voice can ultimately persuade a lot of minds, surprisingly. So first things first would be the meetings. And depending on where you go from there, it would be your second step, which would be ultimately, I don't know, it's like a lot going through my head right now. So like, I'm like putting it together.
Take your time. But I definitely do think it all starts with that conversation and bringing those people to the table to sit there and talk to them about what it is that needs to happen within our community.
Right.
You know? Go ahead.
I don't know if it's a thing that could happen, but if we're having like open like board of education meetings for like, obviously the schooling system, but like why not be able to have open like political meetings and stuff like with our city officials.
Yeah.
Be able to attend those kinds of meetings to and include the youth to get their input on what they want to see in the city, what changes they want to see, what cultural changes they want to see. Just bringing in the voices of the youth instead of just letting the same old things run on a cycle and then change never happens.
Mm-hmm. And that's really how it's been. The same old things just cycle over and over. You know, and they're trying to revitalize things that are happening within our community. But you're right, Ethan. Why are we not speaking to the youth about what it is that they would like to see within our community? I mean, we can go back to when we were growing up. There was so much more for youth to do back then than it is now.
I mean,
why
even,
are people just that, you know?
Even as I think someone said last week, like, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but like lots of youth leave Auburn after they're done. And that's because there's not much for the youth in Auburn. Like, it's just not as open for the youth as it is for the adultery of Auburn.
That's true.
I feel as if they made it more open, whether it was political views or obviously like more like schooling wise or just anything for the community, then this community could truly prosper and be more diverse if it really wanted it to.
It did, but let me tell you, you guys are changing the game because you guys are the youth and y'all are speaking out. So city council meetings are open. We could show up. So it is a thing. Don't worry, Ethan. We can make it all happen. But this is where it has to start. You know what I'm saying? And it's true. There is not a thing for someone your age to do in this community. And I can remember there were tons of things we used to do in this community that, there was just always something to do. It's like the city died, the youth part, or like, things for the youth have died in this city. And so they're just lost. But, like you said, the same things happen. And the same assumption is like the youth don't care. Well, now here we are and y'all care. So definitely it can happen and it will happen. You should say when it does happen, you got to claim it. We're going to do this when it does happen.
Absolutely.
Claim it all because it's going to happen.
I think an important thing to also point out along with, who's going to talk? Somebody else can talk.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I think an important thing to point out, like with the young people even being involved in local politics, like in Auburn specifically, is that I'm going to use an example of a much larger scale. This kind of thing doesn't happen in Auburn because this is a federal thing. But when the federal government very recently, or the current administration very recently, tried to make it so that LGBT individuals wouldn't have healthcare rights anymore, you see the LGBTQ plus community say, well, I want to move out of America. Like, if I can't have healthcare, then I'm going to move out of America. And on a much smaller scale, when things are done in the city that the youth has had no say in and they don't like, why would they want to be here? If they had no say in it and they don't like it, then what motivation would they have to stay?
That's a
Exactly.
really, and I think that it goes to, and as you always say this sometimes, but you got to vote, make people work for your vote.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So our voice, especially the youth, your voice matters. So being able to vote, that's important, especially locally, and making them work for your vote. What are you going to do for myself and my counterparts within our community? What are some positive and protective factors that you can put into our community that can ensure us positive and growth? You know what I mean? And opportunities and different experiences. You got to put pressure on them. We have to put pressure on the leadership within our community.
And local government. Oh, go ahead, Janice. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
No, and it is very important that all 18-year-olds vote, period. Like, but don't just sit there and let people tell you something. You pay tax dollars, we have got to let people work for our vote. You know what I'm saying? And I just think so many times we just see a talking head, but you see someone talking to you, right? But they're representing you. So especially locally, if they're representing you, you need to make sure that all aspects of your life are covered. And that if they don't, we just can't be there voting and talking during the political season. If they are not doing what you need them to do, you call them, because these are your tax dollars.
Yes.
And that's what the important part to know is your tax dollars are involved. So if things aren't going right, you call. You make the phone call. And I just think as young people in our community, you have to be involved in local government, because they literally think you guys don't care.
And I think that played a huge role in the last local election. I think a lot of not just our youth, I think a lot of people of color didn't get out and vote. And unfortunately, because I really don't have a filter, I don't care what I'm going to say. Unfortunately, it led to a racist on our city council. Because
our county legislator.
Yeah. We can piggyback our county legislator. We got her. She'll come back in, because her face is serious too, Frozen. She was about to take it to the house, y'all. She was about to take it.
She was about to talk, because that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. When you got to know who it is that is running, because they are part of making the decisions. You know, hold them accountable. Call them up and hold them accountable.
And you have to hold them accountable. And you saw what happened. People showed up because they were not having it. And so he all of a sudden started, coming off this board. And this same person was on a judiciary board when he was making comments about African Americans. So even then, African Americans' lives were at stake while he was talking about black on black crime. So just think about, this is the person who runs the judiciary board. And these are his views about African Americans. So it's scary. That's why when you say your vote doesn't count, well, it can't count if you don't go vote. You have to vote, because now we had this person who was running the judiciary board having all these feelings about people of color in his community. Shay, we could let you take it right back, girl, and say what you need to say. But yeah,
what was the last thing you heard?
You were at, and there was it allowed us to have a racist on the county legislature.
So basically what I was saying is, it led to that, and then people are getting angry because they're publishing these these articles in the newspaper, but we should have went out and voted. People in that district should have went out and voted. I think that's why it's important for us to educate the youth and educate just the Black community in general, because in local, state, federal, like, they don't get out and vote.
They don't.
And I think we need to educate how important. We can't just sit on social media and be upset with our elected officials. We need to take action
and be a part of it.
Yes.
You don't get, and that's the thing, you don't get the right to sit on social media and complain and be upset or complain to your neighbor when you're not out there voting and using your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And your platform, because we have to talk about our Black leaders as well. We have to, y'all have to be out here with us, you know, in all aspects. It shouldn't be divided, old generation and young generation. We should all be coming together to make the change.
Yes.
As the younger generation, we family, you know what I mean? So all of this, whether it's the churches, they have to step up as well and be a lot more better to our community and come into our community and make the difference and open up their doors and create those spaces for our young leaders within the community, and not just of color. All of our young leaders are allies as well.
Yes.
Because I will say I was very disappointed at the rally when there was only one president that I saw that spoke.
I agree.
Yeah.
There should have been way more.
Very disappointed by that.
There should have been way more.
There should have
been. And it always should. They should always show up.
Always.
And that's how I feel. If churches are safe haven, and I understand that that's a whole different topic, but they are community leaders, and they should be showing up every time something like this happens. Because when we think about the civil rights movement, where was the safe place? The church. That's where you went back to. That's where the meetings were set up, you know? So the sense of, we just need to bring back the sense of community. But voting is very, very important. It's very important. And we just have to make sure we vote every time there's something to vote for, period. Every time. Absolutely. Because it's always going to affect you, not just these big ones, when the school board, anything that we are supposed to vote for, we need to vote, but we also need to do our homework, because we just we have to do our homework. Go ahead, Shay.
Oh, I was just going to build off of that. Like when you said that churches need to open their doors more, we have, in this, don't get me wrong, I love this community center. They do a lot of good, but I think they need to open their doors more too, to the community, and allow members of the community, because we were talking about how you could have a forum. That would be a perfect spot to get started and to have a forum. So I think that's another place. Like, what?
I missed who you said. It cut out on my end.
Our community center. I think they need to open their doors more to the community and allow stuff like this to happen. Because, you know, APT, they're not going to be able to host it all the time. They have other amazing events that they need to host. So there need to be more places in Auburn where we feel safe and where we feel like we can go and have like a dialogue like this.
I was gonna say this.
Dialogue, go ahead.
Just with other, like, we've talked about sports and stuff like that, but also with the arts in our community, because this is a very artistic community, and obviously APT is kind of at the forefront of that right now. But there's a lot of other music, acting, dance-based companies that should also be getting involved, because that's where people go to get inspired, you know? So if they were inspired to help more, it could make a big difference.
That's such a good point, Maya. And that really goes back to everything. They have to, silence cannot be their answer. You gotta be a part of the community and also be out there, yes, to create those spaces, because you're right, it shouldn't just be APT, you know, that are always stepping up, you know, because there are so many dance studios and art studios. There are so many other places here where young kids and young people of color go. So that is a really good point.
And silence just makes you complacent at this point. And I understand everybody does their own way of doing things. So don't get me wrong. There's some that don't hit the street, but they're on social media, you know, doing their activism. So I don't really judge how people do it, but don't be silent. I mean, you can't be silent because this is silence. This is where silence has gotten us. Let's just be clear, you know. And it's almost like we can't stop because, you know, we're good for like marching in the street and then going blank until something else happens. So Dewan, that's why it's very good that you and all these things are good to keep the dialogue going within our community, because being silent at this point at any rate is it's a risk on our life, period. It's a risk on our life. We could die from being silent at this point, at any little rate of any little thing. Even for our LGBTQ community, we have to equally support them as they support us, because black trans people are dying at an alarming rate, and some at our own hands of our own people, and it's not okay. So we have to support all the way around. In that aspect as well. Yes, hold people accountable.
As we talk about having,
why are you echoing?
I have no idea. We're gonna try this again. Okay. As we talk about, I think it was the first week or the last week, we talked about our allies. Like, we shouldn't be the ones that have to go to white people and educate white people on their racism, because that is their problem, right? And how our allies should be holding their own accountable, but we need to hold our own accountable.
Absolutely.
Positive.
Because there are a lot within the Black community that are very ignorant to what is going on. And they like to drink the Kool-Aid? No, we need to hold them accountable. Period.
And I always like to say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, but if they need to equally be educated, I always say that all skin folk ain't kinfolk, but we have to educate and hold them accountable too, because they don't know by the little things they say when they're trying to be in the room at the table with people, how that one thing makes it okay for then white people to think it's all right to say what they need to say. And we can't have that either. So you're absolutely right when you say that. Don't get it twisted. We know we have some ignorance in our own community, but we also can't be staying silent on them either. We have to check it at the door, because then they become part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't save them all now, y'all, because some are deep in the Kool-Aid, and I'm talking the Kool-Aid. But if we could take one out, the sunken place, that's a win.
That goes to the point where we talked about some people you just can't get through.
Yeah.
And talk. Some of them are way in the water, and you got to keep them where they at. I'm just saying, you got to keep them where they are at. But yes, we need to hold our own accountable in all accords. Any type. All people of color that are being ignorant to what is going on. Hold them accountable. They do not get a pass at all.
No, they don't. They don't.
The LGBTQ community, because I can never understand marginalized groups that will try to discriminate against other marginalized groups.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all know oppression and what it feels like. So how are you doing it to the next? Educate them.
I think that's a form of self-hate.
Yes.
I just think they see themselves and they don't like the fact that they're Black.
Mm-hmm.
So they I don't know. I try to educate as many as I can, you know, try to take them out of that sucker place, but it just don't work.
Yeah, you know.
No, that's a really good point, because some of it is self-hate. A lot of it is.
They see themselves as inferior.
They are. Yup.
It shouldn't be a inferior complex, but that's how they feel. I don't understand it, but it is what it is.
Right, and I can definitely say, like, from the things that I've seen, that it definitely goes both ways. Like, I spent a lot of time on Twitter. This is kind of embarrassing. I ran a fan account on Twitter for like 3 or 4 years, and it was a Mariah Carey fan account too. And so I'm telling you, there's a lot of gay people who love her, and that's fine. And then they're all out loving a mixed race artist, and then they go in their group chats, and I've seen what they say in those group chats, and it's not friendly stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, it goes both ways, because they're not, yeah.
100%.
Oh, we know they were upset. Andrew, they were upset. We just wanted our little Juneteenth day because we was interrupting gay Pride Month.
Right.
Yeah, I saw that. But yeah, that is what, like you said, how dare you be, going against other marginalized groups.
Yeah.
But we do have to hold ourselves accountable. And just like, even how some people say, well, there's black on black crime. There is black on black crime, but there's also white on white crime. So, people commit crime against their own race every day. So the fact of the matter is, when people like, well, how are we supposed to respect you when you guys are killing yourselves? Well, how can y'all respect each other when y'all are up in here putting your people in the river and doing things that you do? There's white on white crime all the time.
That is
Look at Snap.
I feel like when people say that as a rebuttal, when you're talking about racism and police brutality, it just reminds me of when they say all lives matter when you say Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Black on black crime is no different than white on, no different. They treat them differently. Because
the difference is the black people get prosecuted.
And they'll treat them a lot differently than as soon as, and I actually was just having this conversation, the difference in how
mental illness.
Exactly. The white man, mental health. And then they'll find really, really nice pictures about them as they're growing up to show that they were a stand-up person. And then you'll see the black person and it's the thug. They had drug charges, they were in and out of prison, they were this and they were that, and it's like they try to dig up everything.
Right. Can I add to that?
Yep, go ahead, Shay.
So I'm going to give like a recent example. So we all know Pop Smoke, R.I.P.
Yep.
They found his killers, black people, and were so quick to want to give these people the death penalty. But when it comes to arresting a white officer who killed a woman in her sleep or who had his knee on someone's neck over 9 minutes, they all of a sudden can't find any evidence, or they can't make a charge, or they can't arrest them. Right. And I think that's the issue that people are not seeing. When you say black on black crime, when a black person commits a murder, they are automatically thrown in jail and it's over. There's no if, and buts about it. And people don't realize that difference.
And then when white people commit the crime, they get to go to Burger King, have a sip of water, and then get deemed
3 months and then they're out.
Yep, I was just thinking that exact thing.
Like I think I saw it with Breonna Taylor's murderer, but he was just relaxing happily on a beach. Like nothing happened. His caption literally said, living carefree and so happy with my life right now, whatever. Like, carefree, you murdered a black woman in her sleep.
Yes.
And you want to talk about having a carefree and relaxing life right now.
And it's so crazy when you think about from back all the way to 2013 and on. And I mean, it's been going on, but it's so crazy when you think about all of these officers that were not convicted for murdering,
right?
And how they're just off living their life while people are suffering in the black community and people of color are suffering or traumatized or afraid to walk over our back and walking down the street because people are just shooting us because of the color of our skin. Or we get pulled over and we having panic attacks because we don't know if that could be the last time we're ever alive. So it's just people don't realize what really goes on day to day for people of color. Put that out, Ethan. That's a really good. It's
bold. You get what this country has gotten so used to us just. This is normalized, and that is sad. It's sad that it's normalized and that he felt comfortable enough to go on the beach, to say he was carefree.
I mean,
You know,
there's even
you're carefree, but you shot someone 8 times. You're carefree. Meanwhile, they were protesting on his lawn, and now we're all coming together to say he felt intimidated. So we're going to arrest the protesters and put felony charges on them. We're not going to do that. So yes, when we know that black on black crime exists, but when we are comfortably getting arrested for peacefully protesting and the murderer gets to go to a beach and we can't find anything all of a sudden, even when we're videotaping, and so that's why I had to lean in, because it's being videotaped, so I don't understand how we're not finding anything.
Yeah.
I
Maya, I
mean,
thought
there's,
you had
About it.
Yeah, I just wanted to just break down the phrase black on black crime and why that's kind of a racist red herring, because just like the phrase black on black already, like, it doesn't make sense. Black people aren't killing each other because the other person is black. That doesn't make sense.
No.
To bring race into that, it's just crime, period. And the phrase black on black crime is used literally just to paint the entire black race as a violent and aggressive
Yeah.
race of people. And it's
Yeah.
just not true. And it's just stupid to even bring up.
It's such a good point, Maya.
Bring things
It
up
is.
like black on black crime, because it's not black on black crime. It's just crime, period.
Yeah, because we're not out here calling it white on white crime.
It's just crime.
It's just they committed murder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
they
Like
robbed the
murder.
bank.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
they're
it's not like if a black person kills another black person, it's not like it's a racially charged
No.
act. It's something that has to do with why any other crime is committed, you know? But
You're
the same
absolutely
can't be
right
said-
about that.
The same can't be said for if someone in power kills someone that's not in power, because then there could be something else at play.
That's a very good point.
And I'm glad you made that, because that does have to be, that needed to be said. It's just crime. That's all it
You bring
is.
race into it.
Exactly. And why do we always have to bring race into it? That's the problem we have now.
Race and politics, like stuff going on, like not even just like the whole Black Lives Matter movement, but the virus. People just love to bring politics into it, and this is not a political issue.
Right.
It does not matter what side you are in the political spectrum. It's human rights.
People are dying.
That's all it is.
Period. I agree, Shaylin. And it's not about the
100%.
politics. What's real is people are dying and the numbers are going up. It's not about if you're a Republican or a Democrat. People are dying. And everybody, you know, it's not a game. And it's a lot of people dying, you know?
Like,
But
being
yeah.
an ally to a marginalized community shouldn't be like a liberal ideal. It should just be a good person thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's something you do because you have morals.
Yes. Home training.
And that's exactly what it should be.
Means that
Not
you're a
like-
good person, not that you're seen as like the worst person in the world for sticking up for what's right.
Exactly. You should, and that's really what it is. It's, you know, we shouldn't have to have all of these labels on anything. A good person is what you're supposed to do and do what's right. There's no,
Right.
you know, it's you're on this side or you're on that side. And in this case, there is a good and there is a bad. You know?
Right.
And Q, y'all a little quiet tonight. Y'all good up there?
Yeah, I'm just really interested in what you guys are saying.
Anything you want to add?
Huh?
Anything you want to add?
No, you guys actually hit the points.
Yeah. But it has, you know, that is a really good point on everything that we discussed. I mean, just looking at the difference in treatment, you know, the difference in everything. And I think people don't realize that at all.
And you know, we're so, and I just think about the media, right? So of course, if the media is going to continue to depict us as monsters and no one does their research, we're going to be monsters to them. But I go on to say, do your own research. Please don't take the corporate news, especially for face value, because they are depicting something from a different aspects. So you got to look at all realms. And I think a lot of people just have stopped doing their research. And I think now, you know, our government is a little like woohoo because people are waking up. You know, people are waking up all the way around. So, you know, I really believe that the government's nervous, and I think everybody got woken up, you know. And I just think things don't happen by mistake. I think this pandemic has slowed everybody down to see what's really going on, and it's time. And it's time. It's time for change all the way around.
It's been time.
It's taken way too long.
Way too long. But I want to go back to our discussion a little bit about our action steps and everything that we would like to see, just to see if you guys had anything else you wanted to talk about, because I didn't want to miss anybody.
I want to be able to see, I guess, more representation of just people of different cultures within our political bodies. Like, I've talked about it with my own mother, and she's even said in the county office building, there's not one single person of color in there. It's like not at all. Just as we said last week, like Black people like never really knew about the civil service exams. Like, I remember when my mom was trying to just like spread the word about that and just get it about, because no one was really being told about the civil service exams except for like just white people who are interested in politics, really. And I just want to be able to see, I guess, more representation of people of color within our political bodies.
Even in our county our government buildings, there's not one Black person.
Ethan, that is a really good point. And it goes to, we have to make people aware that this is what's going on in our community. Because there are some things that happen and people will be like, oh, I didn't know this was going on. And I really want to know what is their marketing strategy within our own community?
Right.
What is it? How are you getting certain things out to not just the white community or the upper class community? How are you getting things out to everybody else within our community to know that there are opportunities like this going on? I remember I sat on a board for grants back in January, and I didn't even know half of the programs. If I never sat on that board, I wouldn't have known that our community was offering so many different types of grants and programs within the community. So it's like, where do you find that? Because you can't just expect people to go online or to go to social media, because what about the people that can't get online or don't have social media? You have to be inclusive to everybody within the community.
Mailing something out, like just as simple as that, as how you mail out the trash schedule. Send that out. We have these upcoming exams, so that way everyone is seeing. People cannot say that they're not getting them, because then that way they are.
Put them in certain places. The DMV, which is always packed. You know, different places within the community where people go. Put them in places to where people can see that this is what's going on. Bus routes.
Like put them in downtown, where because downtown is very overly populated by people most of the time, so that's where most people will be able to see that kind of stuff anyways.
Exactly.
So you see how it's simple solutions to that stuff, right? My bad, Janice, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
But that's simple solutions. You all gave great solutions, but they're not doing that because they don't want to.
And I gotta call it. I think, Dewan, we really gotta call it what it is.
There's no sugarcoating it. They don't want us.
No, because you got everybody asking, oh, what can we do and how can we do this? And there are simple solutions that could happen. Look at other counties or other states or other places. There are ways that you can implement certain things, and that is
they don't want to acknowledge it.
They don't want to.
Easy. They just don't want us in those positions.
And they only do when the pressure is on. Just like they only want to start incorporating, and I mean, I'm glad that it's coming for our Black and brown brothers and sisters, but they only want to start incorporating ways to get them into positions because the pressure is on.
the pressure wasn't on, things wouldn't change.
Right.
You always gotta apply the pressure.
And we gonna keep applying the pressure. And we gonna apply the pressure to our own communities as well. Apply the pressure to them because we need to ask them, why are you not taking the exams?
There it goes.
Exactly.
Now that is the question.
Why are
Because
you
then,
not in these
because
spaces?
that
We gotta hold ourselves accountable as well. Why are you not in these spaces when things
and
are
that's the point. We can't be asking for stuff and then we get it and then we don't show up for it, because then we're sending a whole different thing. Now we gave y'all this and now where were y'all? Now the opportunity's there and now we don't show up. So when we got to come and rise to the occasion, when you apply the pressure, you got to make sure we're rising to the occasion. And Janice, that is a very good point. Why aren't you? Because I'll tell you what, I went to that career center. There's no way you can't get a job because someone's always hired. Remember when we went to that civil service little thingy about how to look and whatever? But there are so many aspects of getting the information out, right? But you're absolutely right on that part. Now, people done hit the ground running to get these things out. So now we need y'all to utilize them, because once we do it, a lot of times, sometimes I can remember things being put out there, people complain, and then don't nobody show up, right? Y'all got to show up. That's the only way that's the only way people know that people are serious, when we take the action. So we can't be asking for things or saying things aren't happening. Then the changes start coming, and we aren't showing up as a people. Those days are over, because everybody has the same 24 hours, and your life is not defined about where you are right now. You could be anybody at any age. You could turn your life around. So I just feel like we got to show up. And we cannot be passive in this community, especially in our Black community at all. Because once they give it to us, we got to make sure we show up for it. And it don't matter if you don't pass it, you got to show up for it.
That we support as well, because I think a lot that we can talk about within our community is things come up or they'll implement things and nobody supports one another. It can't be them versus me. As a whole and as a community, we have to step up and we have to come together. With our allies and within our own communities, we have to come together. So that is a really good point. When these things are open and when these opportunities arise, we got to step in and we got to take them and have our voices heard. And when spaces are created, like youth organizations or forums or panel discussions or anything of that nature,
show
up. We have to be present. And I think people don't realize how far that can go in helping with the change if you just be present and be there and put a hand in and help and be a part of it. So when this group and you young individuals, because this is not the end of anything, right? So when we get started and we put things out there for a forum to happen, because I'm pretty sure when everything, hopefully we're not back in the house by September.
2021.
Well, we'll go with 2021 because that's probably when we'll be out and free. So when we're out and free, we know AT is a place that we can go, right? And it's really good to know. We know BTW is a place that we can utilize. So it's good to know that we have those spaces. And there's probably more now that we're given this platform, hopefully, that are going to wake up and say we need to step up and be a part of our community. But when we start to make that change and we show up, because it's going to be you all that are leading the way, we got to make sure that we have everybody there and present, and you bring people with you, and we do what it is we have to do, and people have to come and support. Old, young, it doesn't matter, because we're all affected at the end of the day. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. We just cannot we can't be passive anywhere. We just can't. We cannot be passive in our own community. We can't be passive on a bigger scale. We can't, because it's a risk of one of us losing our life, period. And when we don't show up into those rooms, that's when decisions are made for us about things they don't even know about us. And that's what the problem is now. Decisions are being made for us, because we are not showing up. We are not telling them who we are, what we're not going to stand for. And that's why you got to make people and ask those pointed questions during, season, because, when you don't show up, that means someone's speaking for you or speaking, and they don't know nothing.
And that goes back to the point that made of why representation matters.
Absolutely.
They'll make sure that they're speaking up for their own and worrying about their own community. And that's why you have to have representation in those places.
Because they'll never understand the problem unless they have someone who understands the problem there with them.
And there you go.
Exactly. And it's sad because to me, it's always been common sense. If you're serving a certain population, that population should be at the table. That just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't, it's clear. But for a lot of people, it's not, clearly.
And let's not get it twisted. There could be somebody at the table. Sorry, Janice. Go ahead.
And that's why we're having these conversations, because of that. But we have to have that representation because we should be going into these spaces. But to me, it's always been common sense. We should already be included. But we're not being included because of the ignorance and the biases and uneducated people that are within these spaces. So that is why representation, that is why you young leaders have to be in those spaces. Because you're right, they will never know.
Even if you're the only one, and sometimes that's hard, but all of us have been the only one already. So if it's on your heart to go, you go. If it's something that you feel like you really need to go speak about, and the opportunity is there, and you seem to be, and you're the only one, you are speaking for 10 other people. So don't ever stay silent, because as soon as you open your mouth, you're helping somebody else out, right? Because there's some people who just don't know. And that is true. In all of our communities, there are people who just don't know. And you could be that voice for that person. So it's just like, we just all got to stay 10 toes down and focus, because we will make the changes we need. And I really think by the views and, that we're seeing, people are very interested in knowing the changes we need. So that's why the time is now for this group to do exactly what we're doing now. Speak about it. And now that we have people's attention, we can't slack. We can't slack because it's our time.
I think it's one of my, I think it's important to just start that coalition with you all. Because I don't think this shouldn't stop today. I know this is our last discussion, but I want this to keep going. So when 2021 does come around, we're able to already say we have these initiatives, we have these people at the table, and we can be out there putting ourselves in places at Board of Education meetings, down at legislator meet, and we're there and we're ready. And I think that's where we're at. I think it's now time to continue the conversation and continue the education, but also start the steps to get to out with our community.
Make our voices heard.
Yeah.
To the leaders that we know are our allies to be on the side to say, we want to have a space where our voices can be heard. Ethan, you're absolutely right. And create the forum, Dewan. And the organization, Janaya, and Maya, work on getting all the other art departments, the dance studios, and work on getting them at the table, right? And Shay, creating and figuring out how we can get young Black athletes to be at the table, even if it's us starting our own. Because yes, and that was another point I was gonna make, because I got to be a woman, bro. I'm a woman too. We need more women, female coaches and representation as well. And I will be 100% with that.
Absolutely.
Yes, we need more Black and people of color to be out here coaching and training and working with our kids on the education piece and the sports piece, but we also need more women in there as well. And I'm gonna end my piece there because we don't see it a lot. We don't. And it's so different when you are coached or trained or you have a woman as your mentor. It is so different, and young girls should be able to experience that.
Yes.
That is
Because
so
our sports
true.
are very men driven.
Man.
Very
And
much
it's
so.
like we can speak from that just from when we did that basketball camp
Yeah.
and how grateful the young girls were to see women in there. We were able to reach out to people in
That's true.
lower income families to come and do this. And I think it really made a difference. So I think that hopefully there's people watching this, like they know that that makes a difference when it comes to their kids. It makes a difference when it comes to young women and young African American children.
That's so true. That we probably just gave ourselves an action item right there. We might just need to bring that back. We'll talk later. Any comments from you guys? I just want to thank you all, though, for being unapologetic and outspoken and telling your stories and being here.
So I didn't even say an action plan because I think I agree with everybody, but I'm a mom. So, you know, for me, I worked for the district, but I just want to be more involved as a parent because I feel like showing up in the school as an African American parent is so important, and being involved in PT. So my action plan is to join PTO and do more volunteering because I want to be there for maybe a parent advocate, even for parents that aren't sure, you know. So even if they couldn't get there, I would like to represent, if I was able to represent some African American parents, because you have to show up in school, and you know, I just see so many kids that it just is needed. So for me personally, you know, one of my action plans is to be more on the parent side and get more involved in the school, because I think just your presence being there, and I know even my presence just being in the high school was different. Even in the middle school, the kids didn't know me, but they knew me. Like they were like, oh, that's Miss McLeod. You know what I'm saying? So just being in the building itself is different. But I just think as a parent, for me, I need to be more involved. And so that's what I plan on doing, is to be more involved as a parent, more so than as an employee.
And I think that's a good point. I don't know why I'm echoing. Hold on, guys. We're going to try this again. There we go. I think that's a good point, too, because I think even on the flip side, and I don't know who mentioned having like young leaders or mentors that work with kids, but even to have young adults of color to be mentors to young kids within the schools.
It's so important.
I think that could be I think that could be so beneficial to our community and to the Black and brown young boys and girls community. And but not even just them, but even to the kids that are in more of the lower income part of our community, because they get missed as well. And to be able to have people that can resonate with them or look like them, to be there to help those parents that may not be able to give a little extra time, you know, and be able to help the teachers, because we do have a lot of teachers that go above and beyond.
We really do.
Schools that can also work with them and help them, and, you know, give your time to just check on them when they need to, you know, just be checked on and make sure you're working with them throughout. I think something like that can be very beneficial within our community. I think it can create jobs. If it became something like that, it creates jobs and leaders within our community. But even if it's something as a volunteer base, I would like to see that happen within our community as well.
I agree. Even like reading to a classroom, I just think we should show up. And the truth is, that's who we need to target. We need to target elementary and up, because I think if we could get a one kid, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can't change them all, but those kids remember you. Kids remember you because of how you made them feel. And I feel like a lot of times kids in our district get handled with the expectation up here when they're really down here. We got to meet those kids where they are and build them up. You get what I'm saying? And I think you made a very good point about a mentoring program, Janice, because it's definitely needed. You know, and, you know, BTW, you only get, a half an hour. So I really think we could do more. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a lot of young people that could go into the school, you know, into schools and grab some kids up that really need a mentor. They
And
really need a mentor.
spaces that we have as well within the community that we can go to with kids and to be able to help them, whether you're tutoring with them, working with them,
Yes.
goals it is they may have. Keep them on track for certain things. If you're working with high school students, maybe you're helping them with interviews or working on
Yeah.
resumes or how they can apply to
College
college.
education, yeah.
That don't, or a lot of kids that don't even know how to fill out financial aid.
And their parents don't either.
You're right, because if their first year or first they're the first to go to
First
college,
generation, yeah.
you know, they wouldn't know. Sometimes they don't know, and sometimes advisors aren't the
As
best
we,
as much as they should be, as we know from experience. So being able to be those advocates for them in the community, I think, is really essential as well. I had another thought, but it kind of went away. Oh, and my other thought too was to also utilize, back to Maya's point, the artists within our community, because we have talented people in our community that can work with young kids. Whether they're teaching them how to DJ, you know, OTM, teaching them how to paint, teaching
She
them
had
how
to call you out like that, though. She had to call you out.
Word, man.
You know, I'm being serious.
No, for real.
Really, there are a lot of young adults in our community that are very talented and educated and experienced. That would probably offer up their time to say yes, I would.
Yeah, do like paint things. I agree, because
You know, and to just have that impact on a young kid and be able to go in, you know, whether you're going into the schools or if you're going into after school programs, whatever the case may be, but you're there. We need to start utilizing our community, because there's so much more than what's up at the Harriet Tubman building and what's downtown or at City Hall. There's so much more, and so much more people that can be utilized than what we're doing.
and I really think that kids should be cultured. So you're making a very good point. Like, you know, there's, you know, kids who are cultured, or, you know, just well-rounded kids. And I feel like if we can get some artists together, you know, there are kids that like to be paint there, you know, so I just think we have to create those spaces. You're absolutely right, Janice. Like, the spaces have to be created. And I really do believe people would volunteer their time, because you could think about it, like you could get high schoolers to come volunteer their time. Honestly, think about it. And then that's volunteer hours for them. So it's just so many ways to skin the cat.
Yes. But we are at 9:12, so I want to be able to leave some room for you all to have some comments. Anything else that you want to say? I look a little tired. Shay, you look a little tired. Anything y'all would want to say? Any comments?
I guess my comment is for the people who have been watching since day one, that they take everything that we said and they go to their friends and family when they say something racist, and they call them out and they want to change, and that they continue to have the conversation, just educate themselves. Because I think that's the most important. Like, we can only do so much. All I can do is call you out on your racial tendencies, but you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to educate yourself.
Yes, you do. And you have to make the racism.
Yes. Even if you don't think you are, was there something you said, something you did when you were walking? Did you cross the street when you saw a Black person? Like, it's little things like that.
Yeah.
And I think they just need to educate themselves on it.
Thanks, Shay. That's a really good point. Everyone has to say something. It's the last, and it's the closing comment.
After this, for those who have watched, what I want to see is just people using their voices more. Like how we have this, seeing more of things like this, or seeing more like little meetings in front of the Harriet Tubman building, or whatever it may be. Just people getting out there, people spreading the word, spreading awareness, and just getting their voices heard and taking a stand.
Thanks, Ethan.
I just hope that everyone that's been watching us, I hope that they are learning stuff and educating themselves and really listening instead of just having to go through one ear out the other
And
making a change.
And people also got to realize that, I feel like I say this every time, but like I'm not going to stop saying this, is that it's not just an event that you have to keep going, because this is not going to stop. It's been too long since we been suppressed and having our voices being silent while we have the time to use them, and the time should be now. It should have been a long time ago, but now we actually have a chance of using our power as coming together as one. And for our allies, I appreciate, and not just me, the whole minority community. We appreciate all support, and
100%.
it only goes up from here.
Absolutely.
It's not a trend.
That's right.
Not a
It's
trend. I like that, Ethan.
not a trend.
Not a trend.
Yeah, I like that. Maya, Dewan, and Andrew, whoever wants to go next.
I'll go. It's just, again, to the people watching, if you've been watching all three of these and actively listening, basically, I just want to say thank you for coming and listening to what we have to say, whether it's just to like see your friends on screen, or to validate your own opinions already, or to just actually learn. It means a lot to have your eyes and ears here and to have you share, because I see a lot of people share like these live streams onto their own pages and stuff. So that means a lot as well. And I encourage you to continue to do that, and to thank you for giving us, or not giving us this platform, but coming to this platform that we're speaking at.
And thank you, Maya, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to say thank you to everyone here and everyone who organized this, because I think this has been a spectacular thing that we've been doing together. And like this entire night has been, the point of this entire night has been, we're not going to stop. We can't stop now. We started this, and it's going to continue in our community. It's going to continue nationally, and we're not stopping until things are right.
That's right. And people are
And
watching.
we will win.
Okay. I like, because people are watching. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh no, you're fine.
You know, from Rochester, promoting to Syracuse to all, and within Central New York, people are watching. So that's right. We are going to win, and we are going to make this change. Dewan,
I just want to thank everybody who tuned in, and I hope we can help you learn more. And if you do need more details, or if you just want to learn even more, I'm sure everybody on the Zoom call will respond to a personal message you send them, or anything. I appreciate you tuning in. And, I'm glad you guys stayed for all 3 episodes.
Also, a huge thank you to APT for allowing us to do this. I think APT is always involved in the community no matter what, and I'm so glad that we have a business that uses their platform for this. And a thank you for my mom, Jasmine, for getting us all together.
Did she just say, make sure you thank me?
Yes.
Oh, I can't.
So we're going to thank her as well for getting us all together and presenting her idea for the youth to have their voices heard.
I wanted to give another thanks to Courtney in the Equal Rights Heritage Center too, because that's another place to where they allow and they open up their doors for different opportunities within our community as well. So I wanted to make that a point too. We do have some people, some leaders and some organizations that are helping with the spaces that we need. So I did want to make that a point. Ash?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. You know, I just think everyone needs to continue to educate themselves. And if you don't know something, don't assume. Please ask somebody, because knowledge is power. And assuming things is what has gotten us into the situation we are in now. And that, you know, it's always hard to hold close friends and family accountable, but the strongest people I know have stood alone based on their values and what they believe in. And sometimes that's what you have to do. So no, it's always okay to be the only one, because a lot of times following the trend is what gets people lost in the sauce and lost in their way. And just to always trust your gut and do your own research. That's all I could say. So I just want to thank you again to Jasmine, APT, for this opportunity. We really set the bar low, and we didn't think we were going to get this many viewers, and I'm just glad that not only did we get viewers, but this is being shared. So
And people
it was just an amazing experience. You guys did so well, and you guys should be proud of yourselves for using your voice.
Absolutely. And I also want to say that this is only the beginning. And so for all of our viewers out there and those that are going to be joining in and probably watching, because it is recorded, so we hope that it continues to be watched, we invite you to the table. We invite you to be a part of the conversation. We invite you to be a part of the initiatives, and we invite you to be a part of the change. So this is only the beginning. You will be seeing more of us. You could always reach out to Angela and APT for any of our contacts. We will be starting the coalition and doing what it is that we need to do within our community. So I just wanted to make sure that was left and said. Other than that, I think this concludes our 3-part series. So again, thank you to APT for allowing us to utilize your platform, and to all our viewers for watching. Peace and love.
Yeah.
Out.
Out.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, are we still on Facebook?
Nah, I turned off.